Hi there, I'm Mike Gales for Everlast Nutrition, and in this video I wanted to take a look at how to counterpunch for beginners. Well, since this is a beginner's tutorial, some of you may be wondering, what is a counterpunch? Well, I guess that you could say that it's a punch that is thrown as or right after your opponent has just thrown his. So the big question is always why? Why would anyone want to do this? Well, believe it or not, one of the best times to hit your opponent is when he's trying to hit you. And the reason is because when he's committed himself to an offensive blow, he may be vulnerable and open to counter shots. So counterpunching, which is essentially hitting him as or right after he's hit you, can be a great way to turn defense right into offense. And that can stop your opponent cold in his tracks. You see, a problem is if you just stand there and let him hit you without throwing anything back, eventually he's going to catch you and he's going to hurt you with something big. But after he's tasted a few of your counter shots, he may begin to second guess himself, and his offensive output may fall drastically, to the point where he may be even afraid to throw a single punch in fear of getting countered. Also, landing a good counter will catch him by surprise and will drastically increase the chances of landing that KO shot. Counterpunching can also create openings for you to land even larger follow-up shots. And another great thing about counterpunching is that it can be an effective tool in fighting someone who's faster than you are, as you can use counter shots to break their rhythm and their timing. Now that you know what a counterpunch is, there are many different ways to set up counter shots, so let's take a look at some of the more basic ones. I guess the most basic is probably going to be to counter off of a block. So this is where you're going to block a punch and then quickly retaliate with your own while your opponent is still vulnerable. For all you beginners, this should be the one that you try and practice first, as it is the easiest to implement. Next, you have counters that also involve some sort of head movement, like a slip, a duck, or a bob and weave. Like here, for example, where my opponent slips my jab and then lands a hard counter right hand to the body. Or he might move his head by ducking under my jab to land his own counter jab to my solar plexus. Or I'll move my head to bob and weave under his right hook to counter with a left hook to the head. You also have counter shots that involve some sort of foot movement, like here where my opponent uses his legs to hop back so that my jab falls short and then he counters me with his right as I'm left reaching into the air. Or here where my opponent changes angles with a quick pivot and then he counters me with a right over the top as I miss the target. If you're fast, then you can use some counters that involve superior timing. So my fast opponent sees my slow jab and he counters me with a quick, well-timed right hand. Or my opponent here times my lunging left hook with a quicker, shorter right hand. Or he throws a quick and shorter left hook as I throw my looping hook. And finally here I try to time his jab as I counter over top with a looping right hand. Really advanced counterpunching may involve some shoulder rolls or even some baiting. That is where you purposely leave a target exposed, hoping that your opponent is going to take the bait. Here, I leave my head open, and then I bob and weave under his shot when he tries to go for it. Or, I smile at him, and then I roll my shoulder as he tries to jab that smile off my face. And I'm going to counter with a hard cross that's going to hit him as he pulls his jab back in. There are literally tons of options for counterpunching, but let's just go over a few common ones for each of the basic punches. So let's begin with some counters for the jab. He catches my jab with his rear hand, and then he counters with his own jab. Some people like to catch the jab with their lead hand and then counter with a cross. I'm not a big fan of doing this, but to each his own. Here he slips under my jab and then hits me with a jab to the body. Here he uses his footwork to get out of the range of my jab, and then he comes back with a hard cross. Or he rolls his shoulder to nullify my jab and then counters with a cross. Here he slips to the side and then counters over my jab with his right. Or he slips my jab and bangs me hard with a counter right hook to the body. Or he times my lazy jab with a counter right cross. And here he times me and steps out of the way to counter with a right cross. Or some people like to even catch the jab with the rear hand and then counter with a short cross. Next, let's take a look at some simple counters to the straight or the cross, like a slip to the outside and then a counter left hook to the liver, or a slip to the outside and a counter left uppercut, or a slip to the outside and a counter left hook over the top, or he even counters my cross to the head with a cross to the body. I'm sorry to cut this short, but time's a wasting, and you could probably make an hour-long video on right-hand counters alone. But since this is only a beginner's tutorial, let's move on to the hooks. So he counters a right hook to the body with a left uppercut. Or he counters a left hook to the body with a right uppercut. I like to counter on the same side as where the punch was thrown for two reasons. One, that's the side that's open. And 2, to block a body shot, I'm already leaning in that direction to cut off the angle, and so it's a much easier shot to throw. Now here he counters the same way, but instead of throwing that uppercut, he throws a counter hook to the head. Here he counters my left hook by beating me to the punch with a cross. And here he does the same thing, but he counters instead with a cross to the body. In this one, he counters my lead hook with a shorter hook. Here he weaves under my right hook to counter with a shot to the liver. Ouch. Or he counters my right hook with a power cross to the body. And he blocks my hook and then counters with a powerful uppercut to the jaw. And now while we're at it really quick for the uppercuts, he pulls back out of the range of the uppercut and then counters with a cross. Or he stays at mid-range and beats me to the punch with a short hook. Now there's a ton of counters for uppercuts in close, but I don't want this vid to be 2 hours long. So let's move on, shall we? Now I don't want to take up too much of your time, but counterpunching is an art, and it can be a boxing style within itself. The sport of boxing is the sport of repetition, and the only way to train your muscle memory and your reflexes to throw counters is to actually practice. So grab a friend and let's review some simple drills. Practice catching the jab with your rear hand and then throw your own jab. The whole point here is to see the punches coming and get used to the timing. And so please don't punch your partner in the face. It's only practice. Practice moving your feet and your timing and counter with a hook. Try a counter jab or a counter cross to the body. Remember that you're not looking to make contact here. Just get used to the movement and the timing. Try countering with a 1-2 to the body under his jab. After you've gotten used to that, try following up with a counter hook to the head. Practice slipping his cross and countering to the body. Or practice bobbing and weaving and countering with a hook over the top. The whole point here is to use your imagination and come up with counters that you feel comfortable throwing. Perhaps try practicing a single counter for an entire round. Just keep at it, and before you know it, all of that practice is going to make counterpunching second nature to you. Now in the future I will post a more advanced counterpunching video. But in the meantime, this has been Mike Gales for Everlast Nutrition, and if you like these videos, then please click below to like and subscribe, as we're constantly posting out great ideas and tips that are meant to get you into the best shape possible.